estimados y estimadas, ya vamos a dar el comienzo, ¿cierto?, a esta charla. Tenemos la suerte de tener a Kasey Lindey con nosotros. Voy a dar solo la introducción en español para todos y todas. Ya vieron que Kasey habla inglés, así que nos va a ir contando en inglés. Kasey, como les contaba, ¿cierto?, es la directora asociada del Teaching and Learning Center de la Universidad de Nebraska-Lincoln. Así que en ese sentido es nuestro par como centro de enseñanza-aprendizaje, y ella tiene experiencia, ¿cierto?, en variados ámbitos como profesora, tanto dentro del sector público como privado, en educación superior, y también tiene conocimientos, ¿cierto?, en temas de gestión de la educación superior, en el desarrollo de estudiantes, tiene un doctorado, de hecho, en educación, ¿cierto?, superior, enfocado especialmente en temas de administración, y hoy día nos va a acompañar para contarnos la experiencia que ellos han tenido con las modalidades, ¿cierto?, de e-learning en su universidad, de manera que nos pueda servir de inspiración a lo que nosotros vamos a hacer. ¿Les parece bien? Luego de que nos comente Kasey, vamos a tener un espacio de preguntas para poder interactuar con ella. So great, Kasey. The microphone is all yours, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I appreciate, again, the time, especially at such a busy time of the year. As she said, my name is Kasey Lindey. I am at the University of Nebraska. In our Teaching and Learning Center, we are dual-facing. Half of our center focuses on student success. So we've got tutors or a learning assistant program. We focus on engagement activities and things within the classroom that have to do with students. And then the other half of our center is faculty facing. So that's everything from curriculum development to course management on our learning management system, to pedagogy training and workshops, and also course evaluations and things like that. So we balance both sides and work with faculty and students on a daily basis. And I'm excited to chat. I'd love to see, and whether if you want to speak for everyone or if people want to jump in, I'd just love to hear a little bit about what your role is. I mean, if we have a mix of instructors or staff, yeah, if that helps a little bit tailor what we talk about.
If anybody needs translation, I can translate for you. That's okay. Kasey quiere conocerlos un poco, que se presenten, cuál es su rol, si es parte del staff, si son académicos. No sé si alguien quiere partir.
¿Yo puedo partir?
Gracias, Miguel.
Un gusto de estar en esta conversación. Soy profesor y hoy día he pasado por varias asignaturas en la facultad y hoy día acompaño las prácticas estudiantiles de los muchachos. Entonces, me interesa mucho esta charla porque ellos tienen por primera vez en su vida que trabajar en línea y además nos reportan al equipo docente los problemas y los aprendizajes que han tenido en línea. Entonces, de verdad que es muy fuerte la experiencia de ellos y muy importante que podamos acompañarles bien.
So he's Miguel, he's a teacher at the faculty. He has been in charge of several courses, but right now he's in charge of the follow-up of the internships that students have to complete before graduation. And that has been, in these years of pandemic, the first experience, work experience for our students, and it has been online. So he's receiving all the questions, all the, I don't know, doubts that students may have. So for him, it's very interesting to be today part of this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miguel. Good to meet you.
To meet you.
¿Alguien más que quiera continuar?
Sure, I can jump in. So hi, Kasey. My name is Claudio. I am a professor here at the Faculty of Economics and Business. I teach both graduate and undergrad classes. So my experience is mainly with traditional teaching methods. Here just to learn a little bit about e-learning and what is your experience with it, how good or bad are the outcomes, the challenges, and so on. So looking forward.
Thank you, Claudio. And do you mind if I follow up? I'm going to ask a quick question, if you don't mind, especially with you teaching undergrad and grad. What do you feel like your biggest hurdle has been trying to teach in this hybrid world? Or is there something you're looking forward to trying to change next semester?
We've had very little and short experience with hybrid teaching. I think it was just a couple of months at the end of the semester. So most of what we have been doing have been just online teaching. And clearly the main challenge there is engagement, both for graduate and undergrads. Perhaps for graduates, it's a bit less of a challenge. I teach an elective course, so people who takes, the class is there because they like the topic. So there is a bit more of self-selection and engagement. But it's still, compared to what I was expecting or what I used to have in a in-person setting, the participation has been quite less frequent. With the undergrads, is even more so. I think that it's mainly a quantitative issue rather than a qualitative issue. It's still the case that we have a core of students that are very engaged and participate actively. I would say, 5 in a class of 60, 70, or 5 students that are always participating, engaging, and so on. And there is like a mid-section of people who would say something if you poke them. But there is a tail of students that really don't like to participate at all.
I understand. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
¿Alguien más que se quiera presentar? También los podemos leer por el chat. Si alguien necesita que les traduzca, voy a hacer mi mejor intento para hacerlo de la manera más, ¿cómo se llama?, apegada a lo que ustedes dijeron en español. Bienvenido ahí al profesor Hardy Reyes. I will take this minute that people are gathering the courage to introduce themselves, to tell you that we have some teachers here today, but also we have a lot of the team of our Teaching and Learning Center. That's the case of Fernanda, Mario, Jorge, Jennifer, and Carolina. So we are also very eager to get to know a little bit of your experience there.
Great.
I don't know.
Wow.
No sé si alguien del equipo quiere decir algo adicional. They're very shy.
I completely understand, which is actually probably a good thing for right now, because I'm going to shift. If we want to talk about, at first I was going to talk about AACSB and how we use accreditation to impact the way we support instructors and support our students, but it might be more interesting to talk about that engagement because we are seeing that across the board here. The University of Nebraska made a push. So outside of spring of 2020, where we all went remote, fall of 20, we made a big push and our leadership said that we are an in-person campus. So we have been in person since fall of 2020. There's been a little bit where our class sizes have been reduced, especially in the larger lectures. And usually what happened would half the students would come one day and half the students would come the next and the others would participate. But we've been in person, but our engagement is pretty terrible. We think for a few reasons. A, it's just a removed learning environment. And B, these students, especially these freshmen or first year students this year, they've had the last 2 years online, and it's removed their necessity to engage, and it really hasn't trained them to. They've had 2 years where they haven't had to participate, and they've gotten by. So maybe we talk about some strategies on how to engage in this world, not only while we're in person, but maybe online as well. Is that okay if we pivot? Throw a curveball at you. Okay, well, I'll start, and we're gonna see how quickly I can do these things online. In the chat, I just shared a shared document. Feel free to jump in there, and I'm gonna do it as well. And just start listing any questions, comments, or experiences that you've had in the classroom that maybe have been good, bad, or otherwise that you'd like to talk about, or maybe have some idea brainstorming on. But I'm going to talk about some ways that we can participate, whether it's online, synchronously, or in a classroom. Something that's helped us is we have a large lecture of, it's about 400 seats, 400 students, and our instructors struggled, they continue to struggle to get that engagement. Students come and they view it, I call it the movie theater, because they're kind of movie theater seats. They sit there, they want to be entertained, but it is one-way conversation. And so we've been pushing for a long time to use different strategies. And one way is using a shared document like this, where you send it out to all students, and it can be, you know, posted in your LMS or something like that. And students can use this, whether it's a spreadsheet, a Word document like this, to post questions. Maybe you're answering, maybe you've posed a question and they need to jump in, and you could do this with teams. So in our large lecture, a lot of our instructors will create shared documents like this for groups of 3 or 4. And so what happens, especially in this environment where we're trying to not have a lot of engagement or close proximity, every student is on either their phone or their laptop working on the same document. So you're getting this synchronous engagement, and it even can happen right now. Of course, we have a lot of students in quarantine. They can participate in their room or apartment with students who are in the classroom at the same time. And so we use this a lot. Sometimes a lot of our math-based courses will have equations or problems already set on these shared documents. And then the professor will say, you know, all right, I want you and your group to work on problems 3, 4, 5. And then the students will get together on this shared document and work, and then they'll save this, and then the professor can go back after class, and then that's how they give participation points, is to be able to see, you know, did you answer the questions as a group or as an individual? Maybe there's some feedback or reflection on this of, you know, what did you learn in this class period, something like that. So that's one way we've tried to balance hybrid learning or online learning, or try to get some of that engagement. Has anybody used anything like that in their class before? It takes a little, yeah, go for it.
No, I'm also a teacher, so I've used Jamboard to do that. Yeah, so that's free. It's already within our email system, and it gives us the chance that students are participating by posting their ideas or whatever.
Jamboard is fantastic. That's an awesome tool if you're starting out a chapter too, or if you're starting a new concept. I think, you know, traditionally we've done the what is it? What do you want to know, or what do you know? What do you want to know? And questions. The Jamboard is a great opportunity for that, of saying, okay, you know, today we're going to talk about take, you know, debits and credits, something very simple. What have you heard? What do you think a debit is? What do you think a credit is? And using that Jamboard to let students throw their thoughts out there. And what's nice is, because it happens so quickly in real time, you could have this on a screen and start pulling out ones that you feel like are really relevant, of like, hey, that was a really good explanation. Who put this on there? And then all of a sudden now that student will have a little bit more confidence to speak up because you've already affirmed that their answer was correct. And so, because again, going back to Claudio's lack of participation, I see that too. Even in the smaller classes, there's either a fear or, again, the untrained learning that nobody raises their hand. It wasn't good before, but it's definitely not good now. But if they know that they're going to speak and they've already got the answer right, they might build that confidence to start engaging that conversation. So I love that. Those are fantastic tools. One more I wanted to share. Let me grab the link and put it in the chat. Another tool that we promote, and there are lots of ones like this. Top Hat is another one, Poll Everywhere. Those are some of the free or more common versions. These are all polling tools. And what I love about these, and our stance here in the center, is that we know students are going to use technology, going to have their phone out. They're going to try to have their laptop out. That one's a little more obvious if you try to ban it, but they're going to have their phones in their hands. So my stance on this is let's try to use it for good, not evil. It can definitely be a distractor, but using some of these tools on their phones or on their laptops, either one, helps them participate and stay engaged. So I just want to stop and see, has anybody used a polling tool, like not necessarily one of these, but just in general? Okay, a few. I see Sebastian nodding. Yeah, what's your experience been, either one of you?
Hi. The one that I use is Mentimeter. So I use Menti a lot. I do quizzes as well on Menti, and I usually use all the different functionality that the application has.
That's great. And what do you teach? Do you mind me asking?
Oh, I teach human resource management, compensation and performance management for undergraduates and also postgraduates.
Perfect. Thank you for saying that, because I try to encourage instructors of all disciplines. I think it's easy sometimes because you can put equation or formulas on here. You can put, it's easy to do math on these polling and say, submit the right answer. But this can work so well in some of those disciplines where you can have something more lengthy or you can submit something that way. Claudio, did I see you shaking your head as well? Have you used something like this?
No, not like that. What I've used is the standard polling feature that comes with Zoom or Cisco WebEx or so on.
Yep.
Which is useful, but the problem is that you have to plan it in advance. No? So you have to prepare the questions and then open the poll and so on. It gives you very quick feedback, but you need to think in advance about the questions. And from what you're saying, it seems that some of these other tools are perhaps a bit more flexible or would allow you to do something like on the moment. No, if you see that there is interest in something, you can poll. That would be great.
Yes, I would say Slido and Top Hat are really good for that. Top Hat does come with a free version, or it'd be a pay by student. I want to say their latest cost is $20 per course. But Slido is free, and Slido does that. I wish I was logged in because you can quickly create a question. Say conversation is coming up and you've got a debate going on. You can quickly type that in and say, all right, students, I want to see what are your thoughts on this issue. And then all of a sudden on the screen, if you have a display screen or on the computer, the results will come out in live time. And it's a great way to, like you said, kind of pivot quickly, but also you can prepare, and that's great. Slido, Poll Everywhere work really well in case you use like any type of slide presentation, any slide deck. They'll there's extensions that you can use. So you definitely can do a lot with these tools, but it's a great way to get feedback from the students who aren't going to raise their hand. Like you said, you do probably have a core group, but what's great about this is that student who's never, ever, ever going to speak up, they might have some really good things to say, and this is one way you can get it out of them without making them, you know, overcome their fear of public speaking or whatever it is. And there's a few more things. What LMS system are you on for yours? We're on Canvas. I'm not sure if there's any. Yeah.
We're migrating to Canvas. I don't know if Sebastián and Claudio already are there, but we are slowly migrating to Canvas.
What do you have now?
An internal development.
Okay.
But it works out more like an information repository than allowing some interaction between teachers, assistants, and students. So that's why we're migrating to Canvas.
Okay. Ooh, okay. If you haven't used Canvas before, you're really gonna like it. That provides another way to engage with students outside of class. I teach an online grad course, and it has been so nice. Canvas has facilitated a lot of good communication there. I think, of course, we struggle with that, the same thing. And so when you get to play around with Canvas, I would encourage you to look into the messaging tools. They have some really nice features with the gradebook. For example, I can message anyone who has not submitted an assignment, or I can message someone who, or a group who got below a 80% on an exam. You can be very selective, and I have found that has played such a big role in students actually communicating with me and coming to office hours. So for example, last semester, I reached out to every student who I would say did poorly on that first exam. So you can click a couple buttons, say I only want to message those students. It sends an individual message to those students, so it doesn't look like a mass email, and said, you know, I just wanted to reach out. I saw that first exam didn't go very well, and maybe didn't meet your expectations. I would love to connect with you, go over the exam, and see if we can prepare you better for the second exam. I had over 50% of my students come back, message me, and reach out some way or another. Maybe we met in person or Zoom, or we just emailed, but that tool has changed. It's not necessarily something new, but I'd say the convenience of it. I don't hesitate now to do things that are more personal. That was still a smaller class. It was under 30, but with our large lectures of 300 and 400 students, our instructors can now have the ability to do that, and it doesn't take them all morning. So I am excited to hear how that transition goes, and hopefully you can use some of those tools to personalize that communication and outreach, because then they get that sense of feeling that, oh, you do know me, even though you probably, you know, maybe don't recognize them or only know them by name. That's been really, really helpful. Let me jump over to our question real quick. So what do we do if there are consistently only a couple students who participate by acting? Yes. The Zoom questions. How many, and maybe let's use a good example. So at the bottom of your screen, of your Zoom screen, there's the reactions tool. Will you give me a wave or a thumbs up if you teach a class that is fully online and uses Zoom? You just hit one of those buttons if that's you.
Si es que alguno de ustedes está enseñando alguna clase que sea sincrónica, pero que sea 100% virtual, es decir, a través de Zoom u otra plataforma, ¿cierto?, de conferencia, le gustaría a Kasey que pudieran, ¿cierto?, dar alguna reacción. Abajo ahí dice reacciones, puede poner ahí una manito, un dedito para arriba.
Okay, that helps a little bit. Maybe I'll add on to this a little bit. How many use Zoom at all in their classroom with students?
¿Cuántos de ustedes ocupan Zoom? Da lo mismo si es durante todo el tiempo, ¿no?, con sus estudiantes. Kasey, I would like to welcome our director, Roberto Alvarez, that is joining us. So, hi, Roberto.
Hello. Oh, here.
You scared him off. Yes. I know, he's over there.
Hello, hello everybody. I didn't expect that to say hello, but
Sorry.
Well, it's good to have you. Hope you're feeling well.
but it's okay, it's okay.
So this is a good example, and you can use this either way. If you're using Zoom, for the handful of you that are, I love the reactions. Very much like the cell phone, our students, they love emojis. So polling questions like that at least gets them clicking and makes sure they're on their screen. We do not require videos to be on. I think that's a good inclusive practice, but you can still engage them. So another way to do that is breakout rooms. I don't know how many of you use breakout rooms, but we use breakout rooms paired with a shared document or something like Jamboard very, very frequently, to make sure that it's not just 60 minutes of staring at the cubes of spaces. So for online, that is definitely something I would encourage. For in person, for the question of, if you only have a few participating, we try to use different learning strategies. For example, think, pair, share is one that we try to encourage with our faculty. So say you ask a question about, how does this concept apply to the current pandemic? I was just talking about crypto coin. Our students are so excited about that and investing. So how does that play a role in the markets right now? So if I pose that question, I would ask my students to do a quick reflection. So that could be on a shared document like this. It could be on a piece of paper. It could be on your LMS. Maybe it's like a discussion board, something like that. But they take a few minutes and they reflect for themselves on the question. Then they'll turn to their person next to them. And so the person who is chatty, this will be great for them. It gives them an outlet. For the person who's not, this at least gets them listening and talking with somebody else. And so then they share what they wrote or what they're thinking. And then what happens after that, then it's the think, the pair, and then it's the share. So then you can ask and you can call on groups, because you know that they've had 2 opportunities to think through their answer, which is often one of the hesitations students have. They don't want to raise their hand because they're not sure if their answer is correct. Well, now they've had some time to think over it. And so then you can start calling on groups of like, all right, what did you come up with? Or what did your partner share? It's always easier to talk about what your partner said than your ideas. So that's one way we try to encourage that, especially on topics where they just have the fear of being wrong. We try to remind faculty of that a lot, of it's embarrassing to be wrong in front of your peers. And so that might be leading to non-participation. And then that also helps when a few students dominate the conversation, is you can direct it and use that power for good. So I'm curious, one thing I did want to talk about as it related to the ACSB accreditation, because I know we're switching standards, and Nebraska was one of the pilot schools to go through the new standards. And we had 2 areas that we wanted to improve on, which I feel like relates to this idea of engagement and making our classrooms something that students are excited to participate in. And that would be experiential learning and societal impact. So our university's strategic plan is promoting experiential learning. And in fact, we are going to, beginning next fall or in 2 falls from now, requiring every student to take a course that has an experiential learning aspect. And so I'd be curious, anybody, and you can type it in the chat or unmute. Does anybody do that in their class right now? Oh, do I see Claudio? Yeah. Oh no. Sebastian, great. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what you do?
Okay, first, our purpose is to develop skills related to professionalism and also human resource management. So we engage with organizations and the students do projects regarding some challenge, organizational challenge that the organization has, HR challenge. And well, we have a methodology that we basically mentor the students because they don't have a working experience to work on these challenges, and then at the end come up with a proposal for what the organization asks us to develop.
Well, that's great. And I'm curious because this is one area we struggle with. How do you find your partners, your business partners, or who you partner with for this?
Well, we have some service units at the faculty. So one is called social responsibility, sustainability, something like that. Yeah. And those are the ones that recruit the organizations. Some organizations, they usually repeat themselves and they come regularly for our projects. But yeah, they do it online using social networks. And they have a good database that where also they sent out emails.
Thank you for sharing. We're right near boat. We do a lot of that work, and I see a lot of student excitement over that. You know, when they realize, you know, oh, this doesn't just come from a textbook. This comes from a real life company or a real life organization. It all of a sudden, you know, makes it more exciting. I don't know if it's really any different than maybe what we would present in class otherwise, but there is that idea that I'm solving something or I'm having an impact right now in something real. I love that. We call it our business career center. And so it sounds very much like your faculty group of they're our conduit to our alumni, to our local and regional businesses. And so they cultivate those relationships that we can use in our classroom. So for any faculty, the way we go about this is if a faculty comes to me and says, I want, you know, to bring experiential learning into my classroom, we first pick a platform of what is it going to look like. I'd say probably the first entry level, which the lowest barrier, is probably doing a case study, exactly like Sebastian mentioned, of partnering with a company or organization, understanding what some of the hurdles or challenges they face, writing up that example into a case, and having students work on it and solve it. It can be as simple as that. Sometimes you can elevate it up. We have a group called our Clifton Builders. This group is hand-selected. It's a application program, and students work for 3 semesters on a project with a company, and now they actually go to the company, they meet with individuals there. This one's pretty time intensive, but at the end of it, they go through, it's more HR focused, but at the end of it, they give the recommendations to the president and CEO of the companies, as well as other leadership. It's such a neat event because you see that pride in the students' work of like, I've spent a lot of time on this and I'm presenting it to people who can make decisions. And so we've seen everything from, you know, just bringing the case into your class and letting them do that there, to different levels up to sharing it back to the organization. That's such a fun way to make it real and to make them take value in their work. Another experiential learning opportunity that we're trying to grow is in our entrepreneurship. Do we have anybody in the field of entrepreneurship here? I know they get really excited about this. I'm sure you've heard a lot about startup competitions and things like that. We do a few of those for entrepreneurship students of starting up a business, quick pitch type things, but we're now moving it into other disciplines. So just this week, we kicked off a case competition around business ethics. And so this is going to include a case study that teams are going to work on. They're going to come up with a web page. We're going to assign them a coach from a professional group to work with, so that way they have a little bit of connection there. And then they'll end up presenting and competing for money. So we've got $10,000 from the company that we're working with, State Farm, and we get to give this to the top students. And so that's another way, of course, having the money drives a little bit of that excitement, but we've got 3 or 4 classes that require this in their course. And so it's nice because we have a mix of students from different disciplines working together on one project, and they kind of bring their flavor from their discipline, which has been really helpful. Let me check. I'm gonna read here. So I'm reading the question in the chat. So thinking about other strategies that could encourage students that experiment some type of social anxiety. Yep, so looking at social anxiety and gamification, which is a really fun way to get students engaged. This is a really good question. So I would agree that the smaller groups help that. I think, like you said, the fear or the social anxiety of not knowing the answer in front of peers, I think, is a lot greater than maybe we give it credit for. Something that we did quite frequently before the pandemic was host student panels. And so we would get 4 to 5 students together. We would do it on Zoom like this, and not right away, but by the end, what we would do is actually make the students anonymous. So they would keep their camera off, they would change their name, and then it would be a group of faculty like this. And so why we did that is it allowed faculty and staff to ask students questions that they're curious about, like this one. This is a great example. And we talked about engagement, which kind of got on this. And some of the students replied that they don't know students in class well enough to feel like they can connect. So anytime you do group work, one thing that they asked or they said that would be helpful is to spend time getting to know their classmates in class. They said, if you tell me I need to get to know my group mates or my teammates outside of class, they're not going to do it. And that just doesn't create a very successful or efficient group work exercise. So they said, you need to force us to get to know each other. So what kind of came out of that is some of our instructors who use group work, use teams, something like that. We really encourage instructors to, when you make your groups, whether you select them or let students select them, have a time where you get them together to do social activities. It can be social scavenger hunts, getting to know each other, maybe a quick game. I know what did somebody do? The little challenge, I've ever heard of you get spaghetti noodles, uncooked spaghetti noodles and marshmallows, and you're supposed to build a big tower, something like that. But they did that, and they did a fun competition game that wasn't related to academics, but it allowed students to work together. We have seen much higher results on student course evaluations when we bring something like that in and allow students to get to know each other. So that could be something when you are dealing with students with social anxiety, which if you've been learning online for the last 2 years in high school, I understand why that might be a greater challenge for this new set of students. I hesitate because I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but it's tough because it takes time out of class. And that's one thing we were talking earlier about when the pandemic hit and when we had that mass shift to online. We tried to encourage our faculty and promote simplicity. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get through the same amount of content we used to. With a different learning environment, there are different challenges. We're dealing with different students at this point. And so I would really encourage you to not feel bad if you need to simplify what you teach. It may be, maybe you don't teach as many chapters, maybe you can't go into as much detail, or maybe you offer other outlets. The way some of our faculty have overcome that, you know, so for example, say you do need to take more time to do social activities and team building. If you miss something, what our faculty have been doing are kind of tailoring their office hours or setting aside special Zoom meetings of saying, you know, I'm going to cover this. Our international business professor loves to do this, of saying, you know, here's the concept. I want to tell you about an example or a story where this happened, you know, in such and such country. I'm going to talk about it more tomorrow at 3 p.m. Join me at this Zoom link. I'll record it. And what happened is exactly that. Students were starting to say, either I don't get it and I need more explanation, or they're saying, I find this interesting and I will make time to come to that. And so he started getting like little study groups outside of class to go more in depth, to cover some of the information that he usually put in class but just didn't have time for. And he would record those and put them online so that way students could watch them later. But it's a balance. I struggle because your class time's precious, and I'm sure you feel like you don't have enough to start with, which you might not. But I think to help with that engagement, to help with that social anxiety of some students, spending some time in class, especially as you come back after your February break, to let students get to know each other, that will probably be worth that little time you spend in the beginning will probably make a world of difference throughout the semester, throughout your term. I know we're getting close. Are there any other questions or things you've been thinking about now that you are winding down one term and getting ready to move to another?
I have a question. Because you are telling us some ways to incentivize the students to participate, to know each other, stuff like that. But one of the problem or one of the concerns is the size of the class. Some of these things may be very effective when you have a small group of a student. How many students do you think is appropriate to do this kind of stuff in the classroom?
Yeah, great question. We were talking earlier about some of the large enrollment courses we have. We just last semester started implementing essentially we're calling them teaching assistants. They are undergraduate students who are serving as teaching assistants. So they're not graduate students, but we put 4 of those teaching assistants with our large lecture, so 400 students. What we did was break apart the class just alphabetically, nothing fancy. And so each TA had 100 students assigned to them. That TA was meant to be kind of their person, their go-to. And so this essentially, or ideally, killed a few birds with one stone. I'm sure a lot of you get a lot of questions from students, and when you have 400 students, you get a lot of more questions. So what the students were instructed to do, and it worked fairly well, is everything goes to that TA first. So all questions, comments, grade rebuttals, anything goes to that TA, and the TA triaged them. The TA also acted as that social engagement. So you talk about having classes larger, that this doesn't work. So what this TA would do is every other week would reach out to a student. And so they split it into 50. And so they would offer, or they would reach out in Canvas, there's a messaging tool, and they'd reach out and ask, you know, how are things going? What can I help with? And create a conversation. And so that started to engage students better. And then in addition to that, they served as the support tutor. And so they would offer a tutoring session for their 100 students outside of class on Zoom. And the students showed up, that TA would start with a social activity. So they would start of like a little poll. I don't know if you've heard it. Kahoot is a popular, study game. So they would just make a little Kahoot game and they would play for 5-ish minutes. Sometimes it would be content related, sometimes it wouldn't. But the idea was we wanted to create more camaraderie within that 100 group student. I know that doesn't sound small, but it's less than 400. And of course, not all 100 students showed up. And so what happened is throughout the semester, those groups had about anywhere from 15 to 40 was our largest of active students. And so these students did come to that tutoring session, and they were the tutor, or the TA knew them by name. And so it was a much higher touch and higher engagement experience for these students because we added those TAs. So that might be one way. I mean, you could do that. Right now we're just starting with our large enrollment, but if this works, we would love to move this down into more of our classes, because we know we would like to take some of the emails off our professors' plates. They can be doing a lot of things that help students and help their research, and emails typically isn't one of them. So if our TAs can take some of those responsibilities off of the plates of our professors and our instructors, and focus on engagement and focus on tutoring and that type of thing, we're hoping that brings some of the positive outcomes that we're looking for. Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to put my email in the chat in case there's anything else. I know we didn't get to touch on everything and there's so much, but feel free to reach out anytime. We've got a great team between myself, and then we have instructional designers who are trained in pedagogy and Canvas. Always would love to help and hear more about what you're doing and how you're transitioning to this new learning environment. But I appreciate, and the invite to come spend some time with you and to hear what you're doing. Very exciting.
Thank you so much, Kasey, for your time and for sharing all the practices and for letting us stay in touch with you. I'm definitely going to write you, so expect that. And also, I want to thank all the presents. Gracias a todos los que estuvieron presentes hoy día, ¿cierto? Ahí nos dejó Kasey su correo electrónico, si es que alguien quiere más información, compartir alguna experiencia. Así que no sé si le damos un gran aplauso virtual, puede ser con las reacciones que le gustan tanto. Thank you so much. We are going to virtually applaud you. So, thank you.
All the best. Enjoy your well-deserved break.